Do 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 do. Welcome to the Traveling Hoopers podcast. I am your host, Alan Pettigrew Jr. In front of me, virtually this time, sad face, are my good friends Calvin McGowan and Philip Dixon. Go ahead and let the people hear your voice.
What's up, everybody? As usual, I'm Calvin McGowan here, joining everybody once again after a wonderful but exhausting trip to DC.
Oh yeah.
It's always good to be here.
What's up, everybody? My name is Flip Dixon, aka Undiscovered Instagram Model. Just here to talk basketball and live life and do what I do.
You were not a baddie, my friend. But
Once I get these up top braces, though, in like a month, I'm about to be. Let's get it.
all right. Well, let's go ahead and get into the fun stuff. Y'all know I'm childish these days, and because I made a mishap a week ago when I talked about the Miami sweeps, I have to now continue this thing, and we're going to talk about the Denver sweeps, and that's what they will be known to me until they actually win another series. So let's go ahead and talk about that game four in the weirdest ejection I've probably ever seen in a meaningful basketball game.
Soft. Uh, I don't. I don't know how you can describe it as anymore, right? John Morant tweeted that out. Um, I mean, he hit all ball, like literally he hit all ball. The
He
dude
also smacked
just
paint.
to be in the way to where it was like a scrape across the nose, face area. It wasn't even like the flagrant two. They talk about like the wind up, but I think the intent has to go along with it because he hit all ball. The intent obviously wasn't him in the face. The face just literally just happened to be in the way, uh, but like barely. Like it wasn't even like a full like runner test James Harden moment. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's levels to this. It was a flagrant one for sure. Um, but I think it's just we're in the process of the overcorrection, right? Like the last couple years, people are, the flagrant twos haven't always been what would be like what should have been deemed a flagrant two.
Yeah.
But I think in the next couple years moving forward, especially with this, it's gonna help be a catalyst to kind of put it in the middle, right? A medium of what a flagrant two should actually be and what actually warrants a rejection, especially for a guy who won MVP that exact same season. So
Yeah. Yeah. Like he got it that day too. Or like the day before.
The game
Like
before, I
it's
think.
like his fingerprints not even dry on it. Like that's crazy.
yeah, I mean, I'm just like maybe they threw him out because they thought it might have been on purpose because he was frustrated. And you can kind of see that in like his body language that he was frustrated, but still, it was a soft call. Like, yeah, flagrant one at most, but like flagrant two, like nah, like you're doing too much. Like, if that's a flagrant two, then any wind up to the ball because NBA players have a strong grip on the ball. That's Cameron Payne. But how do you expect to hit the ball out of a guy like LeBron James's hands, or a guy like Joel Embiid's hands, or some of these incredibly stronger athletes? You're gonna have to wind up and swing. So if you make contact with any other part of the body, it's gonna be a freaking two. Like it's a slippery slope to start it on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think they're gonna make a correction for years upcoming.
All right. So how do you think the scuffle that happened afterwards made them elevate that a little higher? Because they still didn't do much with, the whole tough guy, our chests are bumping up against each other. Like I like I'm not sure because we heard Reggie Miller say, I'm pretty sure there's a flagrant one. Everybody at home was like, okay, there's gonna be a flagrant one just based off the fact that you can't kick the best player out of a like game four. Like it's clearly a closing thing. Like they didn't have a chance of winning it further. But like that is that is a moment where it feels like an overstep from the referees, where like you decided that game right then and there. Like they were already down by double digits, but you definitely decided that game right there. That there was no coming back.
I mean, yeah, more than likely the reaction of the teams on the court had some kind of effect on the decision making of the refs. But at the end of the day, that all leads to the exact same point of that's just bad refereeing.
Yeah.
Like, if it didn't have any impact on it and they threw him out, that's bad refereeing. If they allowed that to impact the decision, that's still bad refereeing. You know what I mean? So, at the end of the day, no matter how you look at it, the refs made an awful decision. The refs made a bad call, and it might just be simple as that.
Yeah. I don't know, bro. Like all the street ball in me tells me, like you let them play, even if they throw hands, it's like let that man fight for his food, bro.
I mean, yeah, but you don't have millions of dollars on the backs of street ball. There's a reason why and when mixtapes aren't around anymore. You know what I mean? Like it's it's a business. And was it a bad business move? Absolutely. Why? MVP. Once again, the refs made a bad choice because it makes no logical sense of why they would throw this man out of the game. He is the first center to win MVP since Shaquille O'Neal. The revolution of the big man's back is what people have been saying. Let that man stay in the game. Play one free throws. Karen Payne didn't lose an eye. We all good. Let's keep on pushing, keep on moving. They still would have lost. It is what it is. Jokic could have talked at a press conference afterwards. Yeah, I have to do all that.
This might be in poor taste, but if you're Jokic, are you crying?
What do you mean crying? Like
after you get ejected, are you crying?
I think Jokic's been crying for the last 3 games.
What'd you say?
He's been crying for the last 3 games. They've been getting knocked around like like the Phoenix Suns Debo or something like that. Like they've been getting knocked around for the last 3 games. So if he just start crying now, he should have started a long time ago because they've been getting smacked. It's been a butt whooping to the highest degree. Is he crying? Nah, because he probably has some kind of bonus for the MVP. So he wiping his tears away with cash. I know I would be.
Man, I mean, look, that's the only benefit from it. Because if you care about winning, I know that hurt. Every last minute of that hurt. Like you gotta feel like you let your team down a little bit, right?
As soon as Murray went down, though, they knew they didn't have a chance to win a championship. But I guess like they didn't have to go out like that, though. But once again, the Phoenix Suns are rolling on all cylinders. Like you couldn't do nothing about that. And I can probably guarantee you, after game 1, every single person on that team came to the realization, if not game 1, probably game 2, that we are out of our league with this team. This team is doing a lot of stuff that we can't do nothing about. So, they're intelligent people, right? They're in the league. They're intelligent. To make it to the league, to make it to the basketball, to make it to the NBA, you have to be an intelligent player, right? And you've been through all levels. You've seen everything under the sun. They had to have known this. Like, it's just it. Chris Paul's turned to this point guard that we can't do nothing about.
Turned into.
People are calling him.
Just a quick rebuttal on needing to be a smart player. JaVale McGee, he's gotten better.
Wildly talented. We can't.
But not a smart player early in his career.
Yeah. Oh wait.
That's all I wanted to say.
I guess intelligent to like a degree, right? Because JaVale McGee's probably intelligent in terms of basketball in comparison. Like if the context was like, everybody who's ever played basketball, right? Including all the people who are watching the games, so on and so forth. But like in terms of the league, he's probably lower bar, right? He's probably like under average, if not average, in terms of like basketball intellect, IQ, whatever. But every NBA player has their moments, right? Every NBA player has their JR moment, right? But most of them are like, just average, like, okay, we understand what we're playing against. We understand what this is. We understand if we can win. We understand if we can lose. That's pretty a basic concept. I'm not talking about like schemes, all kind of stuff. You know what I mean? But I'm assuming, because if you were a smart basketball fan, you knew it was a wrap after game 2, for sure. Game 1, you had an idea, like maybe they'll make some adjustments. After they made the adjustments in game 2 and they still got smacked, you knew. You know what I mean? So I'm assuming they had the same thought process, and they came to that realization pretty quickly. If they didn't, yikes.
Right. I feel like we've talked about this one enough. To close this out, all I have to say about Denver is you realize who the dogs on that team was after you realize who the dogs on that team were after Jokic left, because Will Barton and Michael Porter Jr. were the only two that seemed like they had some fight left. Like everybody else kind of like shrunk up a little bit, like more than they already had for that series. But like y'all saw what I said about Eric Gordon in the group chat.
Yeah.
I also put out the tweet that was like, I see why it took so long to get him out of Orlando. I get it now.
I mean, but I also think, like, legitimately, like, I think the Suns are just good. Like, we could bash on the Nuggets all we want, right? But literally next year, you add one piece in, the way Michael Porter Jr. played and the kind of player Murray is, they're contenders.
Yeah.
But Phoenix this year is just nice. Like, and it wasn't just all Paul George. Ayton is killing. Like, he's doing his thing. What'd I say?
You said Paul George.
You know what? My bad, Chris Paul. I disrespected you to the highest degree just now. Playoff Chris Paul and playoff Paul George are two different things. Like, I said that, they noticed it, you reminded me that I said that, and I felt bad. Like, I disrespected Chris Paul to the highest degree. My bad about that one. But yes, Chris Paul, fantastic, obviously, right? Usually he just is a worry. It's just a worry if he's going to get hurt or not, right? Can his body hold up? But Ayton really did his thing, like legitimately did his thing. And Jokic, they had like similar numbers, many games, and that's a wash. Like, Jokic shouldn't be having the same numbers as man, but Ayton over here balling. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. And Jay Crowder, ever since LeBron smelt this man been going dummy.
Well, so that's awesome, man.
This man, LeBron literally smiled at him, and Jay Crowder changed his life around. Like, what? Like, it's so crazy that he got disrespected, and this man upped his game to a different level, and now he doing disrespected. And you saw it all in the confines of 7 games, and I'm loving all of it. Yeah, I've always been a Jay Crowder fan, especially when he was at Boston, but now I'm just like more a fan. I'm not the biggest Devin Booker guy, but even Devin Booker is like fun to watch at least. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, it's a good team. So as much as you gotta knock the Nuggets, you gotta praise the Suns too.
Yeah, they have one of the best operating starting fives in the playoffs, like from top to bottom. We got the elbow bros, Chris Paul and Devin Booker. Yeah, I'm trademarking that. I'm running with that mug because that right elbow, they're cooking everybody. I don't like they. No, if the rest of the league plays drop coverage, I really feel bad for them because Chris Paul is really just going to go for like 25 for like the rest of the time that they're in the playoffs.
Listen, we've been hearing this for the last, I don't even know, like what, essentially since the Warriors have been on top.
Almost a decade.
Mid-range game doesn't do anything. The analytics hate the mid-range game. If you pay attention, the best players in the league, outside of the greatest shooter we've seen of all time, have crazy good mid-range games. Kevin Durant does. LeBron does.
Doesn't take.
Kyrie
Don't pay
does.
attention to those.
Say it again.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Steph can hit those too. We just don't pay attention to those.
It's because he don't shoot them that often, but he be hitting them though.
Who?
Steph.
But like he's known for like the three, right?
Yeah.
But like everybody else is really efficient with the mid range. Kawhi really efficient with the mid range. So I'm really hope that they at least go to the finals, because that makes that rhetoric null and void. Like, I've always thought it was a dumb rhetoric, because it fell into like the D'Antoni kind of thought process of how to operate an offense, which obviously does not win championships. But for that to happen, for that to be like sufficient, you once again have to have the greatest shooters of all time. And unfortunately, there's like 3 of those ever, 1 of those ever, right? Like that actually makes a difference. And you can go on any championship team really, all the way from 2008. And if they aren't the Warriors, but even the Warriors needed Sean Livingston to win championships, and his mid-range game was essential for 2 of those championships for sure. So no matter what, the mid-range game is here to stay. And there's a reason why you can argue that the second best shooter of all time, in the league right now is who? Probably Dame. Essentially, Dame's probably the third second best shooter in the game right now. Not all time, but in the game right now. You ain't get no chip. You literally have to beat Steph Curry to do it. But even Steph Curry needed an efficient mid-range game to be able to win those championships. So, I really appreciate how the mid-range game is back, baby.
Yeah, bro. To like finish off outside of the elbow bros, we're looking at Mikal Bridges, who is like slick nice. Like I was expecting him to just kind of be 3-and-D with it, but he got a nice little slash game too. Like floaters, he finished at the rim. He real long.
He catching oops.
Dude can kind of go.
Many of them.
Like, I know this is gonna sound wild. If Chris Paul leaves and they just get like an average point guard where Devin Booker can just kind of do his scoring thing, because I feel like that's the best version of him, not when they're trying to make him a point guard. I don't know why they would ever try that, to be honest with you. But if you can get like a solid point guard that can either distribute or have a little bit of a scoring punch, if you keep that team exactly the same and you remove Chris Paul, I think they could probably win a playoff series next year. Because I doubt Phoenix, unless they win a ring, I don't think Phoenix is going to give Chris Paul 3 years, $100 million.
Agree to disagree.
So, I think, because the thing is, he's had other point guards. In fairness, there are very few point guards even remotely like Chris Paul. But and of course, like you said, trying to run him as a point is a bad idea because it doesn't utilize what he does best. But actually they might, just because a lot. I'm sure some of this has to do not just with the greatness that is Chris Paul, but of Booker and his supporting cast, who are as young or in plenty of cases younger than he is, getting better. And I think some of it also is just Booker in particular, but also a handful of other dudes probably just they've wanted to get into the playoffs for a while. Booker in particular. And I guess I would assume that mentally the thing is I'm not trying to just come here and get a first round or second round exit. I feel like if they think that they can get a chip, they're going to do their absolute best to go ahead and get one. Whether or not they succeed is kind of beside the point.
I'm not sure. See, I'm not sure because, all right, let's say Chris Paul goes, right? They get an average distribution type of, Point guard. That's
Lonzo.
not like or whatever, right?
Rubio.
Say again?
Got to get Lonzo.
Listen, if that happened, bro, I'm getting me a Phoenix Sun Sergi tomorrow. But let's say they get an average point guard, right? Because at the end of the day, I don't think Lonzo's an average point guard, but let's say he gets like a very basic point guard, just a tad bit better than Cameron Payne, right?
Jeff Teague.
Jeff Teague 5 years ago. They go to Israel and get Marcus Teague, right? No, I'm joking.
You said average.
Yeah, that's great. That is Jeff Teague is as average as average can get. It's hilarious. But let's say you get Jeff Teague. They aren't winning as many games in the regular season as they did this year. They're playing a higher seed in the playoffs immediately. And we saw this. The only reason they played well when Chris Paul didn't play well this year is because they were playing a trash Lakers team, essentially. So if the circumstances are different and there's no Chris Paul, I don't think they do well at all, to tell you the truth. I think Chris Paul legitimately adds that much to this team from what we're seeing this year, because he going ham. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Chris Paul, and you kind of get a feeling that Chris Paul even knows, kind of how Calvin said, like other players on the team are like, first time in the playoffs, kind of doing their thing. They're doing the opposite of what Julius Randle did.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Paul,
You didn't have to throw him under the bus like that, but yeah.
I didn't, but it's true, right? Chris Paul, you can kind of sense that he knows, like, he has a chance this year. Like, he legitimately has a chance this year. No LeBron, no Curry, no PTSD from those dudes. He could get a ring. Like, this is his. You could argue this might be his best year he's had since the Clippers when they lost to San Antonio. Like, this is his best year, or maybe with the Rockets. Like, but still. And I, as an HBCU graduate, hope that Chris Paul goes for and wins one, low key, because he is like a weird, didn't go to an HBCU, but like HBCU, like honorary, spokesperson, I guess, for us. So I'm kind of like, all right, do your thing, man. Like, do your thing, go out there, get a ring. Now, if Chris Paul goes against Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers come back, I don't know I don't know who I'm going for. But, in this moment right now, I'm pretty jacked up that they beat the Denver Nuggets.
The Denver Sweeps.
The Denver Sweeps, excuse me.
Yeah. And we can close that chapter in the book. I'm really excited to see whatever the Suns have. And as you were saying, what you were saying about no Steph, no LeBron, I promise you, I'm going to be so upset when he wins this ring and I have to hear about somebody talk about an asterisk next to this title because he did not go up against either of those two or somebody like that. That's when I'm pulling the plug. There's no point of ever listening to anybody again if I hear that.
Wait,
that person will be discontinued.
Real good question.
Canceled, discontinued.
Real good question. Did you hear the rhetoric of people calling, or the Denver coach saying Chris Paul is possibly the greatest point guard of all time?
I did not catch that, but that
He said it today or yesterday.
I thought that's been a thing. I thought we've been talking about Chris Paul being like that dude. I thought that's part of the reason why we came up.
Conversation about that real quick though. No, not that dude. The greatest point guard of all time.
like
Is he? I know he's top 10. Is he up there like that?
Okay, I'm gonna put it like this because I've seen some stuff where people are like debating how great he is, and it's like, all right, who do you have? Like, are you sure? And folk like they were like, are you sure you can put him in top 10? Because you got like, Big O, Magic, Steph, who else they had? Stockton, Nash, Kid. I feel like I'm missing one or two people, but it's just like I feel comfortable putting him over Nash. I feel comfortable putting him over Stockton.
Wait, real quick. let's do this.
Mhm.
So you feel comfortable putting over Nash? You said.
Yeah.
I see that because right now, in my mind, is agree to disagree, but he's always been for the last couple of years for sure in that Nash realm. Like he's just been a Steve Nash kind of guy. Like they're in the same kind of echelon to me. But I also hold J Kidd above Steve Nash because J Kidd took the Nets in the finals twice, 2 years in a row, which is an incredible feat. Like I don't care what you say, and he was the man on that team. Did he have Richard Jefferson? Yes. Did he have Kenyon Martin? Yes. But J Kidd is the man. Also, J Kidd is
Isaiah
like
Thomas. They had Isaiah
second all
Thomas.
time in assists and second all time in steals. And Chris Paul is not up there with those. So
Him or Stockton, but like most
him
people
or
aren't.
Stockton.
Chris Paul is, I want to say, top 5 in both.
That's fine. But
Like,
look at the let's find top 5. Look at the numbers of assists and steals these men have. Top 5 is weird because in top assists and top steals, the gap is kind of big in between those 5. It's very strange the way it works out. But John Stockton is comfortably ahead of everybody, like comfortably. But I also think John Stockton, this is personal opinion, hot take. John Stockton's the greatest white man to play basketball ever. Like I've been saying this for years. For years.
I think Larry Bird would like a word with you, sir.
Listen, everybody says Larry Bird, but John Stockton was great for a longer amount of time because he didn't get injured. He didn't have the back injury like Larry Bird. Larry Bird at his peak was better, but John Stockton was consistently good for longer.
From 20 plus years, bro. Crazy.
But I will say though, right? Because you brought up like the total numbers of like assists and steals and whatnot. Is it like, staying just being able to stay healthy and play full seasons would add to your number, even if you're not as good as like another player who didn't have as many like full seasons of like good health under their belt. That doesn't necessarily make you better than them.
It doesn't make you better, but it adds to it, right? Like stats mean something. Like being able to keep your body healthy means something in terms of like whatever, right? Like LeBron's gonna be on the top of all these stats because he's able to keep his body healthy. But should you take away somebody else's skill because they weren't able to stay around as long? I don't think so. But it's just the way it is, right? Like greatest scorer of all time, one of the greatest scorers of all time is T-Mac. But for some reason, people don't think of T-Mac because he got injured way more than like Kobe Bryant. Even though Kobe Bryant says one of the hardest players he ever had to guard was T-Mac and Kevin Durant. He puts him up there with those two. So like I think that stats of like longevity career stats, like all-time assists and all-time assists and points, whatever, I think they have substance, and I think they have not as much substance. But I think in terms of just like the most assists of all time, that means something. The most steals of all time, that means something. Just like when LeBron passes Kareem for most points of all time, that's going to mean something. You know what I mean?
So I'm gonna make an argument. Not that like the total number doesn't matter, because it does, right? But my thing, if we start talking about greatness and like who's the greatest with stuff, at a certain point, right? Because the dudes we're gonna talk about are all gonna have numbers like in a very real way. Maybe not necessarily Kareem. Just I don't know how you get that number like for your total points type of way, but like they have numbers approaching that, like serious numbers. That I think at a certain point it should be more about like not just whether or not you can stay healthy. Not that that doesn't matter, right? It does. But at a certain point, by the time we get to the point we're talking about people as like the greatest player of all time, or like the greatest point guard or power forward or what have you of all time, I think it starts to matter more what you actually did when you were on the floor. And in that case, that would look more at like your averages over your career. Which I don't remember what Stockton's are off the top of my head.
Stockton averaged probably like 10 points But like
I'm talking in this case it would be like assists and steals for Stockton, right? We wouldn't be
like
measuring
13
absolutely.
for his career.
So what?
Like 13 a game for his career. Like yeah, it's literally 13 a game for his career.
But then people would go into the argument of like, but he had Malone and like they had that, but like, okay, you know what I mean? Like you're right, he did have Malone and get mad assists to Malone, but like when you talk about all-time great players, you got to kind of put them in like you got to kind of compare them to the situations that they were put in. You know what I mean? Like, oh no, we had like one of the greatest power forwards of all time and used him. You know what I mean? Like it is what it is. Like every great point guard, a lot of the great point guards had great players around him, right? Even Chris Paul, right? Chris Paul has had great players around him. And you guys just kind of look at, do they make those players better? Do they make the players worse? Do they, you know, it's a very complex issue. But to go back to what we were talking about before, is Chris Paul the greatest point guard of all time? I'm not quite sure about that at the moment.
Yeah, I think there's a argument to be had because I still think as far as I'm concerned, he's number 3 to me. I still got Magic over him, and I think him and Isaiah Thomas is going to have to fight to the death for 2 and 3. But at this point, I got Isaiah Thomas a little bit ahead because of the rings. And looking at stats for correction, John Stockton averaged 10.5 assists for his career, and Jason Kidd has 12,091 assists for a career. Chris Paul has 10,275. And if he in the league for 3 years, I don't necessarily think he'll pass him because that's like 1,816 assists that he's going to have over the next 3 years. But like 600 assists per season is like super doable for Chris Paul, especially if he can stay healthy.
Chris Paul stay healthy, which was once again been an issue for his career. But how many assists for a career does John Stockton have?
John Stockton is stupid. Like I didn't mention his for a reason because the gap between them is crazy. John Stockton had 15,806 assists. And then when we look at steals, Chris Paul sitting at number 5 with 2,332. Then we look at Jason Kidd at number 2 with 2,684, which I think the gap there is going to, he got to be like an assist leader for like 3 years to catch him because that's 352 assists. I mean, steals that he's going to have to make up. And John Stockton is out of here at 3,265. Yeah, like it's
Once again, the greatest white man to ever lace his shoes. What?
I think Bill Walton has something to say about that.
Man, Bill Walton's smoking too much dope. He don't got nothing to say about that. Being weird on commentary.
Who am I? Pistol Pete. Havlicek's in the Hall of Fame.
I don't think Havlicek messing with the motherfucker.
Listen,
Jerry West.
Havlicek. I'm sorry, it's hilarious. Havlicek,
but we ain't letting him in.
Havlicek, Kevin McHale.
He can knock at the door too.
But
I don't know if I'm letting him in. Best footwork in the game.
But here's the thing, though. Greatest prime, arguably Pistol Pete. Arguably, because that man was nasty. But
he's doing stuff.
Player, John Stockton. What did Gary Payton say? Gary Payton said John Stockton was the hardest player to guard because he was smart and he was dirty.
He
called them steals in the 90s. But yeah, Chris Paul is up there. I think he's top. I guess you can, depending on how this run goes, he could be, to me, in my eyes, he can go from top 10 to top 5, depending on how this one run goes. But then, once you're up top 5, a lot of times it doesn't even matter. Like, top 5 in anything in life is kind of incredible. You know what I mean? So.
I mean, I would make the argument he probably already is top 5. It's just like And the main reason he's not higher is like basically everybody else up there has at least one ring.
Man, I
So
don't care. Derrick Rose above him, so whatever.
Oh, that's correct. uh, let's go ahead and move on to the Eastern Conference. Well, I guess we can still talk about people in the West. Did y'all watch that Utah Jazz Clippers
Yes.
series? Well, let y'all get that in there because every time I watch them, it just feels like a game. Like I don't think I have like any control of interest. Like so, I can't really give you a lot.
All right, so I'll start off with saying you tripping. Secondly, I'll say that each game has been interesting because there has been something of note that has happened. Donovan Mitchell, the first game, went ham, but it was like weirdly close. Like it was close. Like it was way too close for Donovan Mitchell to have done all that. And for Paul George, like for Utah to win, Donovan Mitchell had to score 55 points, whatever it was. Paul George had to play bad, and Ty Lue had to leave Luke Kennard in too long for defense. Granted, Luke Kennard dropped 20 on him, but at the very end of the game, you didn't need him. You needed somebody to come in and play defense. And Luke Kennard was getting exposed on an island every single time off of someone. Someone come up, set a pick, they'd switch, whatever, no adjustments. It was disgusting to watch because it was frustrating. But that's what happened, right? But all these perfect things need to happen for them to win, and they still won by 3 points. The second game, I thought they would make some kind of adjustments. Utah came out, smacked in the face, but then the Clippers came back on them. But then Reggie Jackson went in, dropped like 20-something.
mm-hmm.
But once again, like Paul George scored, but wasn't scoring at opportune times. Like, we don't need you to score. Like, okay, first quarter things, second quarter things. But when it's a close game, we need you to score in the fourth quarter. Like, we need you to do this so all the pressure, and they're not triple and double teaming Kawhi the entire time. Morris missed one-point shots he usually makes. Patrick Beverly, bad decisions. Good defense, but bad decisions on offense. And it was kind of just annoying to watch. But then the third game, Paul George went in, scored over 30. Kawhi went in, scored over 30, and they spanked him. Donovan Mitchell looked hobbled, but that's what's going to happen. Unfortunately, that happens when you're 6'1" or shorter, and you're an explosive guard that uses a lot of athleticism, right? They always compare him to Dwayne Wade. But wasn't Dwayne Wade injured for quite some time? Like a lot? You know what I mean? So if you're a young player, do you really want to be compared to Dwayne Wade? Because unless you're playing like an older Dwayne Wade that had LeBron, who wasn't injured as much, a young, vibrant Dwayne Wade was injured a lot. So he left the game with like 7 minutes left, speaking of Donovan Mitchell, and he was like limping. So they're going to play tonight. We'll see what happens. But it has been going back and forth. But each game, the Clippers have had a chance to win. Each game. But for some reason, the Clippers like to make it hard on themselves. I don't know. I'm kind of saying they like to make it hard on themselves tongue in cheek. But Paul George is the greatest role player of all time, who got put into a role that wasn't a role player's role. He was a pretend star. So all of a sudden,
that like wouldn't the greatest role player of all time basically be that though?
Wait, wouldn't the greatest role player of all time be a star?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Happened to Draymond.
No, Draymond's. I'm not getting into that. But talk about Paul George.
It worked for Rodman.
But Rodman, listen, Rodman's rebounding numbers were dummy. So like, there's no like. I'd argue he is okay. Granted, I kind of said the greatest role player of all time, tongue in cheek, but like Rodman is the greatest role player of all time. Like there is no ifs or buts about that. His numbers are ridiculous in the most role player way. But Paul George is one of those like really good, it seems, right? Really good role players that was masquerading as a star for a lot of years. And now, once again, we've been seeing the last couple of years in the playoffs, but, there's a reason why he's called Playoff P. From Pandemic P to Playoff P. And now he's going to need to stay out of both those lanes for them to win. And I don't have the confidence in him to do it, but I have a lot of confidence in Kawhi because of that 46 he dropped against Dallas, which was stupid the round before. So Kawhi will have one of those kind of games. Hopefully he has a kind of game tonight, ties it up, and then we have a great series going forward. But once again, we'll have to see. It's been a good series to watch. If you're a fan of Donovan Mitchell, good series to watch. If you're a fan of Kawhi, good series to watch. If you're a fan of good basketball, series to watch. But also, it's Utah, so it's Utah. Utah is a trash kind of organization, so
yeah, they're mediocre.
I mean,
perpetually mediocre in general.
To me, I just think of them as the widest organization in sports. And you think that'd be Boston, but it's not. You think it'd be the Celtics. It's not for some reason. Paul Pierce was out here getting stabbed and going to the club and smoking blunts. You know what I mean? But it's Utah. It's the team that second best player 15 years ago was Coles Boozer. You know what I mean? Like, it's Utah who has Donovan Mitchell, who is like a pretty perfect player. Like, it's kind of like so perfect that it's kind of Giannish. Like, not Giannish like Antetokounmpo, but like Giannish. You know what I mean? So it's Utah boring, dog.
It's I mean, like, if you're trying to run an organization, though, that's better than your dudes catching jail time for probably stupid reasons.
Absolutely. But how are you more boring than the Spurs?
It's real, like, I'd make the argument they're not more boring than the Spurs, because the Spurs had Tim Duncan, and if it weren't for the fact he was 6'10", you wouldn't be able to tell him from any other person ever.
Championships, in my mind, make you not boring. They don't even got championships.
Nah, you're still boring. You're just highly effective and boring.
Do you, Calvin, were you watching the NBA when the Spurs and Kawhi Leonard went up against the Heat and spanked them?
Bro, that was some of the most beautiful basketball I'd ever seen.
Bro, the most beautiful basketball anybody has ever seen. It wasn't boring. It was beautiful. Utah not beautiful. Kind of boring. Like, you would like people say the Spurs were boring, but I would argue that the Spurs was more beautiful, or not now because DeMar DeRozan, whatever. But the prime Spurs were more beautiful than anything else. This Utah just let a brother to sleep sometimes.
Well, I think when we tend to say that people or an organization is boring, it's more about not having big exciting personalities that attract a lot of attention more than how a team plays generally.
That's true. They got Rudy Gobert. This man built like Groot. Am I wrong though? But
you awful.
Weird thing though, Rudy Gobert, 3-time defensive MVP, or defensive MVP, 3-time defensive player of the year, might be going to the Hall of Fame before anybody else on that team.
Probably, yeah.
From G League to the Hall, baby.
In my mind, I always thought that a player who wasn't offensively efficient had to put up stupid numbers, our defensive numbers, or secondary outside of scoring numbers, like Dennis Rodman to get to the Hall of Fame. But then Ben Wallace came along and changed everything. So now we're gonna have people like Rudy Gobert and
doesn't Gobert have solid numbers?
Say it again.
Correct me if doesn't Gobert have solid numbers? I'm not saying he's a monster, but
Oh, we know he's far from monster.
but isn't it a solid double-double for his career?
I don't think it's a double-double. I don't think he averages more than 10 points.
I think he averages it now. Let me look that up because that's funny.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I will be shocked right now if he averaged more than 10 points a game for a career.
All right. So for his career, 12 points, 11 rebounds.
Okay.
Yeah.
12 points. So, wow, that's like scratching the surface of a double-double. But he there. He there. So he averages a double-double for a year. He averages a double-double for a career, and he had 3-time as of right now. He's pretty young too, right?
Yeah. He's 28.
28, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. He's going to the Hall of Fame before the guy who is scored more points. Was he? Donovan Mitchell, by the age of 23, has scored more 40-point games than anybody in Utah Jazz history.
That sounds crazy.
Yes, it sounds crazy, but it's true. Because he has more 40-point games in the playoffs than Karl Malone and Karl Malone. Darren Williams, I guess, whatever. But he has more than any of them. Now, 20 point, I think it was like 20 or 30-point games. Karl Malone, 30-point games, I think Karl Malone has something like, what is it, something like 50-something? You know what I mean? Like something crazy in the playoffs. But 40-point games, Donovan Mitchell's already passed everybody up. Granted, the game moves faster nowadays. He probably has more shot attempts than Karl Malone did. There's a lot of things going into that too, right? But the surface level stat, is that's the case. But yet, Rudy Gobert will go to the Hall of Fame first.
Yeah. Weird stat about Rudy Gobert. 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. We think about him as like a really good rim protector. This man is so far away from being like on the all-time leader of blocks that like I can't really wrap my head around it. Like he is 500 under the next guy who can get on this list.
Question: how many blocks per game does he average?
2.2 over his career.
What's like the highest per game of blocks in NBA history?
Something like 3 or 4.
I think. Bill Russell. Like, Bill Russell don't count. He gonna
keep in mind that for like the dudes way back then, they didn't keep the stat.
Oh, that's true.
So
I think Mark.
It probably would be Russell or Chamberlain, but like
that's true.
They didn't keep the stat.
All right, let me go ahead and blow your minds real quick. So the all-time leader, in a single season, is Mark Eaton, and he had 5.6 per game in 1984-85.
That's a lot of blocks, dog.
Yeah.
That's a lot of blocks. Well, Rudy Gobert, he's only 28. Hopefully, he doesn't fall off the face of a cliff like Roy Hibbert or something like that. But like, you know, the trajectory he's in, at least he can move his feet. But, you know, once again, big guys, big men in the NBA who aren't like Joel Embiid or Jokic or like. Seeing what happened to DeMarcus Cousins, the trajectory for anybody can fall off very quickly. Especially a big man.
Yeah. I mean, he also did tear his Achilles in like other massive injuries that
his quad
derail it for a dude his size. But I see what you mean.
I mean, because they're big guys. Like those injuries affect them way more than a little guy would. You know what I mean? So like, if that were to happen, then like, you know, it would really be a derailment. And now I hope it doesn't happen because I don't wish injuries upon anybody. But, you know,
might happen.
You know what I mean?
Like, for Gobert, like to get up there, he's probably just gonna have to keep up what he's doing.
Yeah.
Right. And also stay healthy.
Go ahead and win another Defensive Player of the Year. That'd be because there's only like one other person in history that's done 4, so you get that. That's a true win.
Who?
Dwight Howard?
No, Dwight Howard has 3. Because I looked this up yesterday because I could have swore Draymond Green had at least 2. He does not.
Also, Dwight Howard, his trajectory dropped significantly
He
because
also broke his back. So
yeah, because of back issues.
I thought it was because of the thing that happened in Washington.
Mm-mm.
You don't
No.
know?
Relax. Relax.
Oh boy, this is a family show.
No, it's not.
Okay, he got his cheek cracked. He got his cheeks cracked.
Chill.
So it's not.
Oh, Dikembe Mutombo has 4.
Mutombo, okay.
But Tumble has 4? Oh,
Mutombo has 4. The only person with 4.
that makes sense. Well,
Hey, let's keep this pushing because
too much Gobert talk.
I don't necessarily want to talk about the. I guess we could talk about the Nets and how these injuries are making me more and more sad. I don't really know how I want to even continue with this. Like, if the most fun and least fun part about this is we're about to get to see KD be the only option, and that sucks because I've seen what it looks like from the only option, and it doesn't look great.
It turns out not everybody's LeBron.
And that doesn't bother me, but this is like the worst possible. This, from a scoring standpoint, I think this team might be worse than that year he had to play in OKC by himself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think
That's rough.
like, okay, well, one, I admit I kind of struggle to remember that team too much, so I'm not.
They had Steven Adams, they had Ibaka, they had other people who could score a little bit, like consistent double figure guys, but
do they still have that dude who was just there for defense? Or was he hurt?
Yeah, I specifically did not mention him because I am almost sure he has never averaged more than 7 points in a day in his life.
Who are you talking about?
Andre Roberson.
Yeah.
Andre Roberson, that's my guy.
Roberson used to make me sick. Him and Thabo Cephalosha. Ugh.
Look,
that's not who
Cephalosha and Roberson make average guys believe they can make it to the league.
And
wasn't Roberson an elite level defender though?
Yeah. But look, when you see how bad that jump shot is, it's understandable why you would believe that. But the Nets, them boys about to get flambéed? What's cooked? What's cooked in a different language? Anybody know that?
Oh yeah, like all they really had was their offense, and
two
of their best players are hurt. Yeah, it's just they're unless dudes get healthy, Bucks in 6.
See, I looked up how to say cooked in Greek.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even gonna try that.
Why Greek?
Giannis, come on, bro.
Okay. My bad.
Yeah. But no, this is over. I mean, we get to see Giannis continue with these kindergarten dribble moves. So that's nice.
The tweets about Giannis having no bag is some of the funniest things. People just zooming in on him dribbling to no move, but just dribbling, looking around, dribbling. It's some of the funniest tweets I've ever seen in my life.
Bro, I told Calvin this. I believe Giannis only needs to be used in like 3 ways. I want him on dribble handoffs. I want him anytime he gets a chance to get downhill off like a pick and roll. I want that, and I want him to use as a cutter. I barely want to see him post up unless he has a mismatch. And anything in ISO is like, baby, pass the ball and run around, please.
Bro, people are out of pocket with this, dog. Like people
out of pocket with everything.
I'm not like this. I like this is like this man a 2-time MVP, and they clown this man like he on the block. I'm like, this is childish, man. I love it though. I'm not gonna lie to you. I love it.
Of course, this is, but it's true. I would like for it to be alive somewhere. I really would. Like every time he gets a head of steam and Blake Griffin is in front of him, I'm like, oh no, poor Blake Griffin. But every time this man catch the ball on the elbow and like does a size up, I giggle. It's just like, bro, bro, every time you do that, crossover, step back, run forward. That's all I want to see.
I think
Nobody can hold you when you do that.
I think people talk about him as if like he needs to add more to his game. But I just think the way he built, he can't. Dude's arms are so long, like a jump shot's not your future, brother. Like you better Joel Embiid it, gain some weight, and just be on the post and shoot wide open threes. You know what I mean? But like you better.
He's gonna wait till his 30s for that, I'm sure.
Listen, I hope so. I mean, LeBron really didn't even change his game, so we really don't. People changing the game after a long time is like optimistic, I think.
Yeah, because it's 8 years in. I keep like Bomani Jones tweeted he need to be hitting up Olajuwon, or Olajuwon needs to DM him. It's like ain't no point. You've been doing this 8 years
and winning MVPs.
What is this? Like you ain't gotta change your game, but understand what it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Baby, give it to Chris Middleton.
But I will say, I really hope a Milwaukee Utah Jazz final is not in our future.
I'd be okay with it.
I'm low-key excited for that too. That could be fun. That could be the most not.
I want Conley to get a ring.
Listen, I need Kawhi to win. I need Kawhi to win. I need Chris Paul to win. I need Joel to win. Like I'm just invested. I'm like legitimately invested in like three other people on three other teams.
Like,
Giannis, Chris Middleton, I could care less about. I mean, be honest. He's nice, got a bag, been watching him for years, whatever. Like in terms of like the basketball purist in me, I'm like, oh yeah, Chris Middleton. The fan of basketball, I'm like, nah, not Chris Middleton. But like, I also like Drew Holiday, so like. But like I'm fine with Giannis. I like other people more, but I'm fine with Giannis. Like I love the fact that James Harden said he don't have no skill. That's still hilarious to me. But like Utah also like God, don't give Rudy Gobert a championship.
Look, I just want Conley to get a ring. That's it. Like the thing is, I want truth be told, right? As far as teams, like I'd like for the 76ers to get a ring. You know, I'd like Giannis to get a ring. I want Conley to get a ring. Call me selfish if you want to. It's okay. And, like, Chris Paul, because, like, it'd be nice for him to finally get one, right? But, like, unfortunately, him and Conley both getting rings, or, like, even both getting to the finals cannot coexist for the time being. So.
Yeah, I forgot you were invested in the Mike Conley situation. My bad.
Y'all are forgetting about the most fun thing that is going to happen. If the Jazz win, Rudy Gobert is going to cry. And if the Bucks win, Giannis is going to cry. I don't know if you've seen either one of them cry. Tad bit funny. And it'll be happy tears, so we can laugh.
When have you seen them cry?
Giannis cried when he won MVP.
Did he really?
Yeah, and Rudy Gobert cried like a year or two back. I think they got eliminated, and he cried. And it's.
I thought he cried when he wiped that microphone and shut down the NBA.
Oh, no. He didn't cry about that one. He cried about when everybody blamed him.
That's my bad. I think I also hate Rudy Gobert for that. Also, I'm not gonna lie to you. That's the most childish thing. That's the most ridiculous thing. Granted, the league would have been shut down anyways. But like, for him to give it to Donovan Mitchell by rubbing it, Donovan Mitchell's like, yeah, I'm over it. Like, it's what it is. We're all good. I'm like, dude, I'm not good. Yeah, that's ignorant as hell.
Like, it's not enough text messages in the world to clear that up with me. You're gonna have to go ahead and slide me at least 10 mil.
Like, bro, I know friendships that have been ruined because of less.
Look, talk to the league about giving me one of your defensive players of the year. How about that?
Hey, what if, like, in 20 years, you're looking back at, like, stats, and all of a sudden it says Donovan Mitchell at one time where it's supposed to say Rudy Gobert? It'd be hilarious.
Yeah, I'll take that all day, bro. But, shoot. Y'all want to talk about the Hawks 76ers?
76ers in 5.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about this. It's going exactly how we thought it was. Get the ball out of Trae Young's hands. Nobody else can do anything. Have y'all looked at like the not the 76ers, but the Hawks injury list.
What's it look
Like,
like?
it's Reddish, it's DeAndre Hunter, and I can't think of the other dude, but all of them are like really big wings.
It's Reggie, right?
Huh?
Reggie, right?
Reggie who?
Or what's his name? From University of Kentucky.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Uh,
Reggie.
Came out.
I don't think he played for them.
What? Reddish, Hunter, and Goodwin.
Goodwin. Mine was a good one. I'm tripping.
Archie Goodwin?
Brandon Goodwin.
Brandon Goodwin? Okay. I don't know anything about Brandon Goodwin, but those other two dudes are like 6'7" and 6'8" and are really solid defenders. This Hawks team is not going to go away anytime soon.
They're not, but like Trae Young, nice. Actually, I don't want to like Trae Young, but he's so douchey and cocky that I kind of like him anyways. Like I don't want to like him because of his game, but I'll send somebody else this actually. I don't like the 3-point first, like dribble point guard. That's like not my favorite style of basketball. But like when Steph Curry does it, he has like this weird like suburban swag about him to where like he's just like shuffling and like smiling at everything. And then when Trae Young does it, I know he's from Oklahoma, but I feel like he's from the gutter. You know what I mean? He probably not, but I feel like he is. Maybe because he got clowned by his hair his whole life. But like
he listens to the right music, bro. That's what it is.
I just like his basketball swag. I think that's it. Like he like, you know, Dame when he does it, he waving you goodbye. He's stink facing you. You know what I mean? Like he doing all that. Trae Young, ooh, it's cold in here. I'm nice. You know what I mean? Trae Young got like the same kind of swag. I'm like, okay, I like that. Like I like you carry yourself. You know what I mean? So I don't like his game, but I like his presence. But they're gonna be around for a long time. But so is Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. Like you mad young. So is Jason Tatum and so is Jaylen Brown and a lot of young talent on the East Side, dog.
The East is back, yo. We just gonna have to wait for it for like another 2 years, but they actually look like something.
Quick question though. All right, so like y'all caught some of those, like some of that series so far, right? Have they? I don't know if you watched any like regular season games. I unfortunately didn't get to catch any for real, except for like one. But is the Ben Simmons doing quick post ups as soon as they get down the floor like a thing they've just started doing for this series, or like?
It's not a thing they just started doing for the series. It depends on the matchup. It depends on who's guarding him. But like, I wouldn't say it's like a very common thing they've been doing all year. But if the matchup warrants it, they've been doing it. And in this series, like Ben Simmons can do that to pretty much anybody. You know what I mean? The Hawks are big. The Hawks are long. The Hawks can, jump in and out and switch a lot because they have like the players to be able to do it with Ben Simmons. But Ben Simmons is like a very strong player compared to like everybody. So like this series, he's been doing it more than ever. Maybe because of the playoffs they did. Because of the playoffs, they changed it up and like exacerbated it a bit. But he's kind of been doing it depending on the matchup every year, all year. I mean.
Okay. It was just because it's like I think last game in particular, right? I noticed it. It's just like as soon as they get down the floor, he does like a quick post up, right? To like I guess try and get the ball and score quickly or something, which is good considering they have been sending 3 people at Embiid, which I'm not entirely. Okay, no, I get why you do it, but even if that's why you do it, it's still not a great idea for several obvious reasons. But
you can do it to Giannis.
Well, I will say this right now.
Can't he pass though?
They've done it to Giannis, and it worked.
Can he pass? He passes. He's not a passer. He passes. Yeah, Philly up 19-12 right now. And they on all cylinders, bro. Like they really cooking. Like they look like they just hit their stride. So like, yeah, this 76ers, it's a wrap, Atlanta. Sorry, Quavo. Coach Zuri's fired, but It's a wrap for you,
It
bro.
was fun while it lasted, bro. I'm glad. This is a really good debut. Like I'm glad that the people who this is their debut, they're having success because all of them were young. As far as I'm concerned, we need this auditioning period because all our homies is about to go, yo, and it makes me very sad.
All your homies, what you talking about?
Like all of our favorite players, like Chris Paul's getting up there, LeBron getting up there.
Oh, you meant like about to get out of the league.
Yeah, like they're about to, a lot of them dudes about to retire.
Not mine. Shoot. Lonzo young. Embiid young. Let's get it.
But the dudes you grew up watching play though.
My favorite player is my favorite players growing up, like in middle school, high school, were like Ray Allen, and like Jay Kidd, and they gone already. So like I wasn't like legit. What?
How old are you?
I liked he got game. Like what can you say, bro? I like he got game, and Jay Kidd was in like Mike. Like come on now, there's reasons for these things, but like. My favorite players weren't the 03, 04 draft class for whatever reason. I have no idea why. Like my favorite players weren't in those. Like I like Carmelo. He's not my favorite. He's not my favorite player. But like I went from very old to very young very quickly, and I have no idea when that transition period ended. Derrick Rose was probably the guy for a long time for me, and still is a guy for me. But he changed his game up to like Runner City. So that lasts a long time. You know what I mean? Like that game lasts a long time. And Derrick Rose is also like 23 or something like that. So he's chilling.
You gonna see, bro. Like I'm just let the youth be youthful. I've been impressed so far.
You asked me how old I am. This man said, "Let the youth be useful." That was a very old. It's like I sound like a preacher for an AME church.
Hey, boy, you know I got bars.
That's wild.
All right.
Stupid.
If y'all got anything else to add, this is the time. If not, let's go ahead and get into this college basketball snippet. It's good, Cal.
Oh no! I thought okay, never mind. We were about to get into some of that.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get to this college basketball snippet. Calvin, lead us off.
All right, so for those of you who are unaware, apparently supposedly it has been said that Jalen Duren, currently the consensus number 2 player in the 2022 recruiting class.
Soon to be number 1.
Yeah, probably soon to be number 1, but one thing at a time, right? Like it hasn't been made official yet. It's been what, one ranking that has in there, yeah. He supposedly he's expected to reclassify and play college ball this year.
Boo! Come back one more year and smack these boys. You did it during COVID when nobody was looking for real. Come run it back. Especially because I moved to Florida. Run it back.
Hey, maybe he just wants to go on to the next thing. Even though like my understanding is he also put something else like he doesn't really have any intention. At least, that's supposedly what he's said about that rumor that's been going around. But again, for y'all who don't know, Jalen Duren is very, very good. Is the whole number 2 player in his class thing would suggest, and just he's fun to watch. I don't really know how else to put this. He passes well. He's solid in the block. He can shoot. He does what you want a big man to do, and like a little bit then some, depending on what you want your big men to do.
He's easily the most dominant and at the same time most finesse center we have in the class of 2022. Like turnaround fadeaways out of the block, easy, and he'll jam on you with little remorse. Do you remember the Arizona Clippers game that we watched?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody was trying to guard him all tough, and he just kind of smiled on him, and then like next play just hung out the rim and looked at him like, "What's wrong with you? You know who I am, right?"
Like he's about to have a long NBA career whenever he finally gets in the draft. But I guess moving on just a little bit, Um, I want to talk about the whole like little impact thing or whatever Cincinnati has for their players for like their name, image, and likeness. But there's not much to say it exists. Like I wish there was more I could be like, this is what it does, but it's just it seems to for our purposes, right outside looking in, it kind of just seems to be there. Um and in a like little thing for gender equity when it comes to I guess the men's and women's games, they're apparently looking the NCAA is apparently looking at adding like using March Madness from referring to the women's tournament, as well as increasing the tournament to a 68 team tournament. I think they've also talked about moving the 3-point line back because basically everybody shoots behind the men's line anyway.
Alan had a great point about this earlier that I want him to get off his chest though.
But okay, y'all can go ahead.
The fact that we had just called it the women's tournament for this long is kind of a slap in the face to equity in the first place. Because like March Madness doesn't even have like a gender for real. Maybe there's some like marketing issue with that. But this
They don't do any. That's the issue.
exactly like them stepping out and saying this is like it's not even a good look towards inequity because like y'all were saying earlier, we didn't even notice that it was just the women's tournament. And I covered like the past two women's tournaments, and I had no idea why or like specifically that they did not use it for that reason. And as Philip was saying earlier, it really only seems like the NCAA wants to change things when it benefits white men. Like this one doesn't really help anybody for per se. It just like maybe for SEO reasons it does, but everybody who was tuning in for the women's tournament probably already knew what to look up. And I believe if you type in NCAA W March Madness, you still get the women's tournament. So it feels like one of those stupid things that you didn't have to announce. You could have just did it and like maybe somebody would have been like, hey, look. But now it's just kind of like you didn't have to do this. Nobody was really asking for this. Just make sure they have the equipment next time.
I mean, it's just like people with a simplistic thought process are going to be like, whoa, you see what they did? Instead of thinking like, what's the substance behind this move? Like, it's a PR move. Point blank period. No substance, just PR. That's all it is. And, they got called out for the weight room last year, which was wild. Absolutely wild. So what do? We're going to change the name to what it should have been the entire time. But, like, it's just a name, so you could have just changed it and no one would have known because everybody assumed it was called March Madness anyways. But, once again, PR move. These guys it's a business, and businesses are stupid, so that's what they do.
How you ain't got a single, like, smart marketing person, though? Like, there's nobody that you're running this past. Like, there's literally no one, because this is like an easy thing to avoid.
Yeah, but I'd argue that business people, high-level business people, and it's essentially who's working with her for the NAACP. That's wild. For the NCAA, high-level business people don't think that way. Like, that's just not how their initial response is to think that way. So they need people to tell them how to think this way. But, like, business people surround themselves with business people. So it's like a weird thing.
So that I feel some of this gets into various things that one of which I wish I like looked into more when I ran across it. But as far as the business thing, yeah, part of the issue with like having a person in charge of a business, but like they had no actual part in like building or working in is it like they don't know what's going on. Also, and again, this is the thing that I wanted to, that as I'm thinking now, like I should probably go back and look up for real to get a better understanding. But apparently, in like making the like TV deals for like football and basketball, the NCAA threw most of the other sports under the bus. Like in terms of like basically, like they kind of the other stuff, including the women's games, kind of just came in as like extras, right? Kind of like hamstringing those sports' abilities to like generate revenue for themselves. Um, and also, right, this last, like, I know the women's tournament in particular, like, viewership was up. Like, the WNBA's viewership as well has, like, been
Has
on the climb. Yeah. And it could be a point where, like, some of these business people are realizing that, oh, this thing we don't care about, there might be money here, right? That we didn't, that this thing we weren't paying attention to. Oh, we can make money off it now.
Calvin,
Yeah.
I get what you're saying on that, but I don't know if you've like looked at the viewership numbers for the tournament, probably for like the last like 10 years, and even on like softball level, they've always had the viewership. The views have always been a thing, especially over the like last like 10, 15 years. It's been a thing.
But
These
now,
people are just stupid.
But now people care about women. Like that's essentially what it is.
About the money.
Bro,
Yeah, that's what they care. They care about the money. Like, because
you weren't even caring about money.
To use a headline I saw, right, the women's game can do something that the men's can't do nearly as well at this point, and that is grow. Like, there's a lot of room for the women's game, both at the college and at the pro level, to get a lot bigger.
Yeah, but I think we're just overshadowing the fact. Not overshadowing the fact. I think people are just sexist, man. Like, I think it's pretty simple that, unfortunately, you know, it's how the world is. People are just sexist and they have sexist thoughts and sexist views. And a lot of these people up top, what are they? Old white dudes. They're probably going to have some sexist views. And they have to be talked out of the sexist views. So us being like, people in their 20s, whatever, just happen to be of a generation that we're seeing a sped up process of like that thought process becoming extinct in the mainstream, essentially. It's been having waves for 100 years, whatever, longer, but in the mainstream, we're of that generation, so we are seeing like these type of things come about of like steps towards what some think is equality and what some think is equity. But I think at the end of the day, some of these people up top are just sexist. Like, the money doesn't matter to a degree. It matters, but it doesn't matter to a degree. And some dudes are just like, no one wants to watch women. Like, it's like a you hear it walking around living your normal life. So of course you'll hear it in those boardrooms because they're ignorant too. You know what I mean? So,
like, you're correct on a lot of that. I want to state that right now, just because, like, you're right. Like, there's some folks that are just like, no matter what's gonna happen, like, no matter how cold the women's players are, who's gonna say, like, just be like, we don't want to watch women play. It's like, no, you don't. Just sit down and let the rest of us enjoy things. But like, I think the money matters a lot, and I think that whole like seeing that viewership has been going up, and like is at like its highest level ever, and clearly like just going based off like some of the men's stuff has plenty of room to grow, matters for them people up top, just because it's like, yes, they are sexists, yes, they have racial biases and many other kinds of biases, but what they do care about more than anything is the almighty dollar, except for Emmerich, who just, I don't know what he cares about or why he has a job. But like like that whole money thing does matter. That whole money thing is probably why they're considering doing some of these things. Because like if the viewership numbers hadn't have increased, they wouldn't be talking about increasing the 68 teams. Like try and increase the viewership more, have more games, more money rolling in. That's a money decision, right? Um, the increase, like the 3-point line thing is just kind of, it's just a thing. It's a game thing. It's like you might as well do it. Everybody shoots from back there anyway.
They're trying to slow down Caitlin Clark, forgetting that she's shooting from like half court. Stupid. Yeah, this is a weird conundrum. And since we're talking about like sexist stuff, like I've never seen water polo on TV. Like I've never seen college water polo, and that seems to be a very white male dominated sport. So do they not like themselves either?
I mean, but you see lacrosse, so
barely.
Yeah, ESPNU, but once again, but then like once you talk about, I think when you talk about women, is a different dynamic. Like the sexism dynamic is like huge. When you talk about men, it's about it's that automatically leaves the table, right? Like the sexism conversation is gone. So it's more dominant. It might be dominant at the other end, but it's more dominant money, funding, whatever, because is lacrosse going to be the same, type of, are people going to watch that in terms of revenue and TV commercials and advertisements? People going to watch that as much as they watch, Alabama football or Clemson football or Duke basketball or KU basketball, whatever, right? No, right? Baseball, you don't see that as much. I saw more softball this year, I feel like, than any other sport than I've seen in a minute, right?
I think there's still a lot of baseball, though.
There's
At least like college ball. The MLB doesn't know what it's doing marketing, but that's a whole separate conversation.
There's a lot of college baseball, right? But like you have to watch like ESPNU to watch a lot of college baseball during the season, until you get to the tournament in Omaha. Like until you get there, that's when it like pops off, right? But it's a money thing. It's like there's no question about it. It's just a dominant money thing. But once again, money over everything for some people, and just not great.
But like, but the thing with it though, from like right before, I feel like Alan's about to be like, all right, we can kind of, this is a good place to stop or something. But it's just that the thing with the money thing, like what you'll see from businesses and business people, and like people in those positions, is a tendency to think really short term. Like the idea that you throw all the other sports in with the men's basketball and football just kind of as bonuses seems kind of short-sighted. It's like people like baseball. Like you can go ahead and like, I mean, granted, there's a simplicity. Like, look, we're not big baseball fans. At least me and Alan are. But like, and my biggest issue with baseball is like, it's boring to watch and fun to play and participate in. But it's just that like it's short-sighted thinking, right? Like it's short-sighted, it's a level of poor like planning, and granted, like it requires a little more effort to be like, okay, what's this baseball thing gonna look like, as opposed to just like, all right, well, you get our big stuff and we're just gonna throw our little stuff in so we don't have to do any work for it or whatever. But
yeah. So as like the baseball guy of the podcast, baseball has like other issues. Mainly the white traditionalists have ruined baseball for this generation, right? Like
I want you to go into that, but off the pod, because it's a completely different thing.
It is a completely different thing, but is what it is. So when that happens, not as many people watch it, and when not many people watch it, you won't, advertisers don't want you to put their advertisement on that commercial, or they won't want you to put their commercial on that program because they want, they'd rather put it on somewhere else because they got to pay for that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? It's a whole entire back business thing that is, much higher and much more well versed than I am. But when it comes to the short sightedness of businessmen, most businessmen that I've come across and I've read about tend to think about how they're going to get money personally, because their personal money turns into generational money for their families. But they don't think about how the product itself is going to continue on and grow, because most business people are working for the resume. They're not working for the company at hand. That's just how it works. You know what I mean? The business people, not the on-air personalities and not the whatever, right? The talent, but the business people behind the scenes. That's how their thought processes work more times than not in terms of business. And for us outside of that, it doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you think? Why would you do that? But for them, it makes perfect sense, because they're in 5 years they don't want to be there. They want to go on and do bigger and better things, right? That's just how the business thought process works, and we're seeing that in terms of reality. When it comes to this situation as well, I'm thinking.
All right. I think on that we can get up out of here. Well, thank you for listening to another episode of the Traveling Hoopers. I promise we are not this depressing at the end of most of our episodes, but the NCAA made us do it. I am your host, Alan Pettigrew Jr., signing off. And in front of me, my man's Calvin McGowan. Go ahead and get us out of here.
Once again, thank you for enjoying the Traveling Hoopers podcast and sticking to the end. If you're joining us on YouTube, like, share, subscribe, leave something in the comments. And of course, you can listen to us wherever you listen to your podcasts. And enjoy the rest of your week.
Yep, I'm Philip Dixon, aka Mr. Gatorade Boy, and listen to the podcast. Thanks for listening. Tell your friends about it. Tell your grandma about it. Tell your auntie about it. Tell your uncle about it, and tell that third cousin you barely see, except in family reunions. All right.
Your boy weird.